Let's start by the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would everybody please mute or turn your cell phones off, please? Nancy, you want to do roll call?
Allen, Valley, Bivens, Book,
Here.
Considine,
Present.
Farster,
Present.
Hudson,
Present.
Humphrey,
Here.
Pitson,
Present.
Popine,
Present.
McLean, Minimi, Naylor, present, Nicholson,
Here.
Norberg, Palin,
Here.
Sheline,
Here.
Shippert,
Here.
Scrogstad,
Here.
White, Williams,
Present.
Wilson, Zeman,
Here.
Olson.
Here. Thank you. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from June's meeting? If there's no corrections, we'll leave them stand as read. Go down to zoning. Included in the agenda is a packet for the monthly report submitted by the zoning office with the minutes from the ZBA hearings. They're there for your review. So we move down, we got petitions going to ZBA, appeals none. Petitions going to the planning commission. We have three petitions. Petition 22-PC-67. We have an ordinance regulating development of private pipelines. I would entertain a motion to approve that, to move it to the planning commission. Jack.
I'd like to make a motion to ordinance regulation, development and private pipeline to be sent to the Lee County Regional Planning Commission for public hearing.
I have a second. Mr. Kitson, any discussion? If none, all those approved, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have number two, the petition. We have an ordinance, an ordinance amending the regulating development of wind energy conversion systems ordinance. Jack,
I make a motion that petition 22 PC 68, an ordinance amending the text and regulates development of wind energy conversion system to be sent back to the Renewable Energy Committee for further review.
do I have a second to that?
Second.
Ms. Shippert. Any discussion? We're sending it back to clarify certain items on there, Jack, or what's the thoughts on that?
Apparently so, zoning has requested that this needs to be looked at.
All right. All those in favor of Jack's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to go to number three, petition 22-PC-69, an ordinance amending the regulating development of solar energy systems. Jack,
Make a motion to petition 22 PC 69, an ordinance amending the text and regulates development of solar energy system to be sent back to the Renewable Energy System for further review.
do I have a second on that? Mr. Kitson, any discussion on the solar ordinance being sent back? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we'll move down to D. We got petitions coming from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We got petition 22-P-1591 GSG Wind LLC. Entertain a motion for that. Jack,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve petition number 22P 1591 by GSG Wind LLC with the following conditions. I've got 17 of them that I'm going to need to read. Number one, GSG Wind LLC should be granted a variance to reuse existing underground collection lines instead of laying new ones, and should be granted a variance to retire unused underground collection lines in place. Number two, GSG Wind LLC's request to stay requirement that a professional engineer's certification regarding design sufficiency to withstand wind load requirements be submitted prior to the ZBA hearing until prior to the issuance of the building permits be granted. Number three, construction's activities shall commence no earlier than 6 a.m. and shall be discontinued no later than 9 p.m. Sunday through Saturday within a half mile of the non-participating residence unless a waiver is obtained from the non-participating resident. Number four, GSG Wind LLC must directly pay or reimburse Lee County for any third-party engineering consultant hired by Lee County and or legal fees incurred by the Lee County during the duration of the project from the day that the special use permit is approved through the final decommission of the project. GSG Wind LLC shall not be responsible for any third-party services not related to this project. Number five, any subsurface drainage tile damaged within the proposed site must be repaired by GSG Wind LLC or current owner operator to the same or better conditions in accordance with the AIMA agreement. Number six, if GSG Wind LLC will be using any WTG model other than GE 3.4-140, it must provide a noise modeling study for the same to the zoning officer prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number seven, if GSG Wind LLC will be using any WTG model other than the GE 3.4-140, it will also be required to provide a waiver, consent, or agreement to the Lee County zoning officer from any landowner on whose property there will be an IPCB noise exceedance prior to the issuance of the building permit. Number eight, regardless of any WTG models used in this project, GSG Wind LLC or current owner operator must notify the county of and respond to the complaint within 5 business days, either being notified in writing of a noise complaint. Number nine, if GSG Wind LLC will be using any WTG model other than the GE 3.4-140, it must provide a shadow flickering modeling study for the same to the zoning officer prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number 10, if the applicant will be using any WTG model other than the GE 3.4-140, it will also be required to provide a waiver, consent, or agreement from any landowner on whose primary structure more than 30 hours of annual shadow flicker is modeled to occur prior to the issuance of the building permit. Number 11, regardless of any WTG models used in the project, GSG Wind LLC or current owner operator must respond within 10 working days after being notified in writing of a shadow flicker complaint. Number 12, before a building permit is issued to GSG Wind LLC must show to the satisfaction of the Lee County zone officer that the finalized turbine models and corresponding locations meet the Lee County Ordinance 10-15-15D.9 setback provisions. Number 13, the applicant be able to utilize any of the 3 methods for deconstruction of the WECS facility presented at a hearing as long as WG blade removal is done in a manner that does not cause the blades to break apart, shatter, splinter, or disintegrate, and no WEC tower may be felled with the blade still attached. Any hazardous fluids must be removed from the WTG prior to the felling. Number 14, the applicant must comply with the IDNR in its consultation letter. I'm sorry. This is all in your other.
Consultation.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, sir. Which recommend a continuing bird and bat strategy that included the applicant curtailing all wind turbine operations below wind speeds of 5 meters per second from sunset to sunrise between July 15th to October 15th of each year. Number 15, the IDNR acknowledged as future data or technologies as it pertains to wind turbine collision risk for bats or birds may pose opportunities for new curtailment regimes to be discussed between the wind energy facility and IDNR through the operational life of this facility. Applicant shall comply with any additional recommendations of IDNR implemented after the December 4th, 2020 consultation letter submitted by IDNR. Number 16, the applicant be required to provide a copy of any waiver, consent, or agreement to the Lee County zoning officer from a landowner on whose property the required setbacks will be met prior to the issuance of any of the building permit. Number 17, a violation of terms of this conditions of the special shall be grounds for revocation of the special use by the Lee County zoning administrator.
Do I have a second to that? Mr. Kitson, any discussion? Yes, Rick.
Are these the same conditions that came out of the zoning board hearing? Are these different?
Alice.
These are not the zoning board's conditions that they recommended to this board. That they are pretty much what the zoning board recommended. We had a couple of issues where we're trying to align these conditions with what we've done with past projects as well as what we're going to implement with future projects. So while the majority of the corrections made to these conditions were mainly to either clarify, clean up, the two that do vary from what the zoning board recommended are numbers number 3. The zoning board recommended that construction activities shall commence no earlier than 7 a.m. and shall be discontinued no later than 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday within a half a mile of non-participating residents. With past projects, we have allowed them to work from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. We would like this to be consistent with requirements of previous projects. And we'd also want to allow them to continue to be able to get the construction done and over with instead of holding them up by not allowing them to work on certain days or at certain times. There's going to be other holdups, weather, equipment, things of that nature. And I really disagree with adding one more day that they can't work to complete the construction. The other change pertains to number 13. The zoning board recommended that the petitioner be allowed to employ the reverse build WTG removal method. This method of decommissioning requires the biggest crane. That crane takes like 40 to 50 truckloads to bring in. They will not be able to walk it across any roads, so they're going to have to take it across landowner property. And it is very expensive. What I propose is that they be allowed to utilize any of the 3 methods of deconstruction of a WEX facility presented at hearing. And as long as the WTG blades are removed in a manner that does not cause the blades to break apart, shatter, splinter, or disintegrate, and no WEX tower may be felled with the blades still attached, and any hazardous fluids must be removed from the WTG prior to its felling. This would be consistent with what we're proposing in the upcoming wind ordinance. Our main concern with allowing them to fell turbines with the blades still attached is the material of the blades is composite, it's non-biodegradable, it is known to leave small pieces of debris behind in cornfields or farm fields, and it does affect the quality of the land. So those are the 2 amendments that I would ask you to consider.
Did the ZBA vote down 3 or 13? Did they were they against doing this or did they have the option to do this?
For number 13, the decommissioning.
3 or 13, either one.
So the zoning board typically tries to implement stricter construction hours. This board typically does not. And that's why I'm suggesting that we be consistent. Our ordinance does say that they would be allowed to, construction activities would be allowed from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Saturday within a quarter of a mile. So this would give them an additional half mile or additional quarter of a mile protection. And the applicant can get waivers from the landowners if they want to vary from these proposed hours. And number 13, they discussed my proposal as well as the reverse build method, and they voted to approve the reverse build method. Their concerns were related to any debris being left behind in the field. And so they felt that 3 of the members felt that by just requiring them to do the reverse build, we're eliminating that concern. But I don't think it, I disagree with that.
An ordinance specifies.
Our ordinance currently does not specify. Going forward, though, we are looking to implement this language that I am proposing here tonight in the new ordinance.
I do agree this crane weighs over 1 million pounds and it does more damage going across the fields than it does. You don't need it out there. It's a lot better. Any questions for Alice?
What was the board's rationale in limiting the hours?
I do not know. Their concern is for the landowners, that they don't want them to be disturbed. It is a recommendation they have made consistently with all renewable energy projects. This board typically goes with what the ordinance states.
More questions for Alice? Thanks. We have a first and second. Any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Humphrey.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the ZBA hearings and stuff. I just have a hard time being put in a position where we're trying to decide between what the ZBA, who we authorize the authority to do this work, and in our zoning department. And so we're kind of caught in a difficult position. I feel here. I have a hard time overruling a panel of 5 or however many sits there. It's a democracy. I understand it's a close vote, but I think we should honor what came out of the ZBA. That's my personal opinion.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why didn't we see the recommendation as it was approved from the ZBA? And why was it modified before it got to us without just seeing their recommendation?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think their recommendation was in our packet earlier, correct? And then this is what come out of the zoning, what they,
We don't have to hold this over so people can view it if we just now
Yeah.
got it.
yeah, I'm not crazy how it is there either, but I do agree with the 2 changes. But I'm just one, and I agree with Mr. Humphrey. We had ZBA sit down and go through it, so.
So my question is, like, one of the reasons I joined this board was that zoning to me looks very arcane and looks like a process that no one understands, especially if you're opposed to certain projects. How is it that we have impact? If we do what Mr. Humphrey says, which is that we simply agree with what they say, or, we add the conditions, like, I guess what I'm asking is what is the proper channel?
Well, we've done this before, so it's not like we're setting precedents or going to an area we've never been before, so. Ms. Shippard.
I realize this is a repower, but what effect does our moratorium have on this? Any?
They've got to come petition after we have our ordinance on file, correct?
Repowers were excluded from the moratorium. Sorry, Alice.
correct. I forgot about that. More questions? Mr. Sheeline.
So when Rick brought this issue up, I've been consistent about supporting what the zoning board is. I'm going to split the hair that conditions are a little bit different. This isn't a recommendation from the zoning board in favor of a project and the board votes it down. And I've always had problems in that regard. In this case, I think what Alice was trying to do is be consistent with the ordinance as it's being moved forward. And I don't think that you can really say that this is we're slapping down the zoning board or anything of that nature. So that's the hair that I'm splitting here
With,
in support of.
one could say the Renewable Energy Committee has gone through this, building our ordinance, so they have discussed it and defined it more. None, yes, Mr. Zeman.
Yeah, when they rebuilt the ones over by Paw Paw, because of the wind, I unplugged my mic. It was so windy during the day, they had to hang the blades at night. They had the big spotlights, looked like an airport. The 9 o'clock deadline, can that be abridged? I mean, they moved all this equipment and they're trying to hang the blades safely. And if they get one blade halfway up, it's 9 o'clock, well, gotta quit. And there's no fine in the ordinance if they do go beyond the 9 o'clock. I think, I guess the individual landowner could okay it. Was it within a half mile of Alice, within a half mile of residence?
To clarify that, the last recommended condition states that a violation of the terms or conditions of the special use permit granted herein shall be grounds for revocation of the special use permit by the Lee County zoning administrator. So if they do not comply with the hours of operation, then they can be subject to revocation of their special use permit.
Okay. If they didn't run all night, it's just 10 o'clock, ish. Depends on the wind.
And depending on if they have gotten waivers from the surrounding landowners, they might be able
Might
to
be.
continue
Okay.
past those hours. So
Okay.
it just depends on what they've agreed to. And we rely on the landowners to let us know if they're not complying.
Right.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? I think we'll do a roll call vote on this.
Humphrey,
No.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson, Palin,
Yes.
Sheeline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Considine.
No.
Farster,
Yes.
Hudson,
No.
Olson,
I'm going to abstain.
yes. 3 no.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to E, petitions coming from the Planning Commission, none. We'll go to 7 on our agenda, Administrator Monthly Update. Wendy?
So I'll defer my comments to items later on the agenda with one exception. I did report to you last month at your meeting that I would give you a heads up this month about where we're at with the boardroom technology. I received word just 2 days ago that the monitors, the big screens that'll go up front here, are now in. That means we have all of the equipment here except for the microphones themselves. The decision was made by the contractor that they would be coming in and beginning the installation even without the monitors. They'll run all the wires, and they anticipate or not the monitors, but the microphones. The microphones, they are considering to be somewhat plug and play. So they're going to get all the wiring in place, all the other equipment in place, monitors in place. And when they get the microphones, which is not anticipated until October, unfortunately, then they will plug and play those. But at least we're going to see some progress moving forward. I don't have a scheduled date yet. We're still trying to find a date that this room isn't going to be used. That'll give them a little bit of block of time to be able to do some of that stuff, but I'll keep you posted. Other than that, Bob, I have nothing else except later on the agenda.
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy? Yes, Ms. Shepherd.
When we get the new system installed, will this room return to similar configuration that we had in the past?
Yes, I'm anticipating that. When we get the new equipment in, we're going to have multiple cameras in the room, whereas right now you only have the one up front. So it seemed logical to have everybody facing up front. Well, now we're going to have cameras in multiple places in the room so we can go back to essentially the original configuration. Haven't quite figured out this front area yet, but the back rows will be facing each other and you won't have your backs to the audience. So.
More questions or comments for Wendy? Thanks, Wendy. We'll move to board member comments. Any board member at this time want to make a comment? None. We'll go to items on the agenda. Visitors that don't want to talk about items on the agenda. We've got Danielle Burrs from Lee County Farm Bureau.
Hi, I'm Danelle and I'm with the Lee County Farm Bureau. And I just came to make a couple comments on the animal control ordinance as it's proposed. I became aware that you guys were reviewing this in June, and I've been working with Terry, and she's been gracious enough to kind of work with me on some of my concerns. I kind of ran out of time to get all of my concerns flushed through with Terry. And I still had a few things that I would like to see worked out on the ordinance. My main concerns are not on the intent of the ordinance. I think they're just secondary, unintended scenarios that could come from the way that the ordinance has been written, specifically in the realm of livestock production and how it could affect farmers' abilities to raise their livestock. One of those areas that that Terry's been working with me on, and we've got some language in there for, is for the ability for farmers who are raising livestock to use a guardian dog on their property. Guardian dogs are used for the purpose of protecting their livestock from predators and are not pets. And we do not feel they should be classified or treated as so as the ordinance. And Terry has put some language in there for that, but I still have some areas that I would like to see some changes. And one of those being, honestly, the definition that's included. I would like to see that firmed up to be a little more strict than the way that it's currently presented. Right now, it addresses an animal that is bred for the purpose of protecting livestock, and I would like to see it for an animal that is being used for the bred and used for that purpose, to eliminate any confusion from people who also own those animals as a pet. Other concerns that I would like to see further discussed that are on that topic would involve like a guardian dog and how it affects how the shelter requirements impact it, because the guardian dogs live in the pasture with the herd, and shelter is not always available as written in the ordinance. And another concern that I had, or that the Farm Bureau has, is on a section. We would like to see a clarification on companion animal versus livestock in the situation, which I'll just off the top of my head, it refers to no such animal shall be confined in a manner that it would lie in its own excrement. I would like to see that addressed specifically for companion animals to eliminate any confusion on the impact that that could have on livestock production. So just a few concerns specifically in the realm of how the ordinance as written could impact livestock production. I know that's not the intention of the way the ordinance was written, but generally speaking, it's best to have things in black and white so there's no confusion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Anyone else at this time want to speak? None, we'll move on. Reports of committees, administrative services. Ms. Naylor, did you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The minutes are in your packet. The Administrative Services Committee met on July 11th, and we heard reports from all of the administrative and department heads. One thing that we have been doing in that committee is the department heads or administrative people have been bringing part of their staff, a designated person, to the meeting so that we can meet them. And it's been really informative and really nice. And for the last meeting, Jennifer Boyd brought Sammy Alafari, who's the new GIS employee in the GIS department. We briefly talked about the fact that there hasn't been a lot of COVID activity, and Chris recommended that we drop that part of the meeting business. We also discussed briefly the restructuring of the committee assignments, and I know that that's being discussed in a lot of other committees. And then the committee went into executive session for the purpose of releasing some of the minutes of the past executive meetings. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, everything's in your packet.
Any questions for Ms. Naylor? If none, thanks, Nancy.
Yeah.
Black Hawk Hills Regional Council, Mr. Nicholson.
Yeah, there wasn't any meeting due to the tragic and unfortunate death of Ava Shaw. The meeting was going to be a week ago Monday. It's rescheduled for July 28th. That's so I don't have anything.
With that, I've got a card we passed around. If everybody got a chance to sign the card for the Shaw family, very unfortunate. Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Claims Committee, Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Claims Committee is working wonderfully. I've got a couple tweaks that I want to talk to Paula about in the software that might help us a little bit. But basically everything is running fine. We're averaging somewhere in the high 40s to 50 claims per meeting. Yesterday we had 60 some claims. So, but I think a lot of those are coming from highway because this is their construction season. So normally I would say in the 40s for each meeting on claims.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Shepherd? Thank you, Marilyn. Executive Committee, we had 2 meetings. The minutes are in the packet. Any questions? We'll move on to Finance, Mr. Sheeline.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met, Finance Committee met regular time last week. Minutes are in your packet, and we've got a couple resolutions that are coming down the pike, and there's some things that we'll talk about when we get to those. We did have a report from the Insurance Committee. That's also in your packet, and if you have any questions in regards to that meeting, Nancy can answer those questions. And she has her next meeting is on August 1st, and there will be a recommendation coming out of insurance for August. Other than that, that's all I've got.
I needed to talk to both of you about the Insurance Committee meeting, maybe after the meeting tonight.
That'd be
Bring
great.
it up now, so I don't forget. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sheeline? Thanks, Jim. Health Department, Katie White's not here. We'll move on to 911 Board, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to what always been provided by Director Dallas, with the retirement of Brad Sibley, Dixon City Fire Chief Ryan Busco was appointed to ETSB chair position. Lee County ETSB has been selected to work with the state for a cybersecurity audit. IT Administrator McBride will be working with the county IT on some of the audit bullet points. The 988 mental health suicide prevention hotline went live on July 16th, and the CESA committee is meeting monthly and created a subcommittee to establish protocols between 911 and 988 prior to January 2020. 23 deadline. ETSB continues to discuss the retaining wall issue between ECC building and the old LEC. And the next CTS meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 28th at 5:30 PM at the Lee County ECC or 911 building. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hudson? Thank you, Keen.
Thank you, sir.
We'll move on to properties planning and zoning. Mr. Wilson and Mr. Valley are not here tonight. Jack, Mr. Scrogstad, do you want to take a stab at that or? Surprise.
Properties meeting met July 12th, 9 a.m. We discussed the issues that we talked about here in the petition changing. So there was discussion there. Sent it on to executive or for the county board to review. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And then notes are in the packet.
All right.
And if you got any questions, you can ask Tom when he comes back.
Like, keep you on your toes.
I got just.
Yes, Mr. Nicholson.
Just threw together some thoughts that I was going to put them under board member comments, but thought it'd be more appropriate under properties. But 3 months, I'm going to be gone from this board after 22 years. But with that said, I want to encourage Mr. Wilson and the Properties Committee to continue to expeditiously upgrade, repair, and replace HVAC and elevator infrastructure. For the last 18 to 20 years, we haven't had the extra money to do that. We've maintained the stuff and kept everything running. But that was about it. But now, due to the Arpa funds and fees from alternative energy systems, we now have a few extra funds to make improvements that should have been done many years ago. And I'd like to encourage the full board to realize and to vote conservatively in favor of the funds for these improvements. I personally don't feel these funds will continue to come in the way they have the last couple of years. And I think in 3 to 5 years, we will be glad to have spent the money while we had it on the infrastructure. And I would encourage anybody that has any questions to just talk to Mr. Wilson or talk to myself, because we've been through the work. So,
Well said.
thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? We'll move to public safety, health, and judicial. Mr. Copine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public safety met July 13th. Business as usual. I don't make comments anymore that I think it'll be a short meeting because it wasn't. We had approved the previous minute meetings without any modifications. The claims committee reports were already filed in the program here. Administrator and department head reports were heard. Quarterly update on collection of unpaid fines. We skipped over that. And the update on the dangerous and abandoned properties is just a work in progress. That continues on. I think we've got a little bit more movement. Charlie, can you want to highlight on that? Other than just somebody is made interest or made comment that they might be interested in one of the properties. So we're trying to narrow some things down there. UTV ordinance update. Mr. Scrogstad updated us on that. We did have some lengthy conversation on that, and there's been some changes in those that are the townships that are wishing to or were wishing to participate in it. We've had 2 and potentially a third one that has withdrawn. And it's being done, I think, in conjunction with communications with the insurance group, Torma. And it falls under liability issues. There is one of the farm publications, I don't remember which one it was, but this is a 2-page item on it if you'd like a copy of it. If you didn't get the magazine itself, this explains some of Torma's input on it. The ordinance had been tabled from June. There was a motion made in the meeting to remove the ordinance from the table position, and that was done. And there was some further conversation by the committee chair of some language that would be considered to be changed. There was a motion made that the changes be taken back to the committee to be reviewed so that they can be updated and corrected. Other than that, that's it, without going into a lot more talking. It's there in the minutes. If they have any questions, they can certainly contact me.
Any questions, comments for Mr. Govine? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Transportation Solid Waste, Mr. Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on Monday, July 13th in Amboy Forest. You have everything in front of you, as you should have. Basically, the highlights, Mr. Anderson reported on the following, several different projects, actually quite a few projects coming up. The ones that are either haven't started or have been completed. Everything seems going well. The budget's within budget. Everything's going also. He's happy where we're at there. We had the bid letting on the recycle, the dumpster hauling. Midwest Disposal was a low bidder on that. So that was approved. Our next meeting will be Monday, August 15th, 8 a.m. Also at the Highway Department office in Amboy. Be glad to answer any questions anyone has at this time.
Questions for Mr. Forster? None, thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tri-County Opportunities Council, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tri-County met on June the 23rd at 6 p.m. And we discussed a few things about our website we have set up for people to call if they know of anyone that needs a job. And we have several job posting for people in our 9 counties. And also, if anyone needs sewer and water bill paid in our 9 counties, they have a number in my report that you can call and get them help. So if there's anything else, I appreciate you reading my minutes, and it'll tell you what you can do to help the residents out in Lee County. If there's any other questions, I'd be glad to try to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Thanks, Marvin. Tourism, Mr. Palin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Lee County Tourism Council met on July 13. On your desk are various advertising items. One is the newspaper stuffer that appeared in the Rochelle News Leader and the Ogle County Life Rock Valley Shopper. Our ad is on page 11. Also, there's a stuffer of Franklin Creek Conservation Association listing the various attractions in the Franklin Creek area. Also on your desk is the brochure regarding attractions the latter part of July and first part of August. And we are with the CTM Media Group have decided to distribute our 2022 lookbook along Interstate 80, the eastern Iowa section of Interstate 80, which would be 52 hotels in that area. Let them know about Dixon and Lee County and the attractions. Also, our share of the hotel motel receipts for the month of May is $9,337.68. This concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Palin? Thanks, Bill. United Counties Council, UCCI, I always have a hard time with it. Mr. Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We didn't have a meeting in June, and our meeting will be for July meeting will be coming up this coming Monday and Tuesday. There's meetings in Galena at the annual conference. I know there's several other folks besides myself that will be attending from Lake County. So I'll have a report on all of that at next month's meeting.
Questions for Mr. Farser? Thanks, Doug.
You.
All right, we're moving on to old business, the animal control ordinance. It was held over from June. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Kitson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an effort to get this ordinance available for the animal control people to use and the opportunity for us to eventually amend it and help out with some of the requests from Farm Bureau, I will make a motion that we accept that ordinance tonight.
The animal control ordinance.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Yes. Got a second? Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes,
Thank you.
I pointed. I didn't see, you can't hear my point?
Quiet as it was just assumed.
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. I was reading way too far here. Any discussion? Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you. So one more month when we haven't had this ordinance, so that way they can continue the discussion, is something that you're not open for, Tom?
Casey, we looked at it going either way, and in talking with Terry, she'd like to get the ordinance so she can start to use it. The parts that are in place can be used, and then we can amend it with the parts Farm Bureau would like to work with us, which are small parts compared to full motion.
At least we get it on the books, get it going, and then we'll still have to hold over the amended a month when we come with that. Any other questions or comments? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go to B, the ordinance, the opt-out of special assessment for affordable rental housing. This was held over from June, if you remember. Jennifer talked about it last month. I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance, opt-out of the special assessment for the affordable rental housing. Mr. Hudson? Make motion. Ms. Bailey seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Naylor, yes, sorry. Motion carried. We'll go down to C. Resolution, the appointment of Dr. Patel to the Lee County Board of Health. This was tabled in June. I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution appointing Dr.
Mr. Chairman, you have to take it off the table first.
It's true. I'd entertain a motion to take it off the table. Thank you.
I'd make a motion to take it off the table.
Sheila moves. Mr. Nicholson seconds. All those in favor to take it off the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution appointment of Dr. Patel to the Lee County Board of Health. Mr. Sheeline makes a motion. Ms. Naylor seconds it. Any discussion?
One thing,
Yes.
and I really appreciate the form. I just want to make a comment on the request of getting the biography for these appointments came from me, so I just want to make a comment. I really appreciate the form that Wendy put together. I think that it brings information into the board of who we're appointing, and we have a chance to understand, why they're interested in what we're doing. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's nice to look at it. It's in their packet. I hope everybody's seen it. We requested it. I just request everybody to read that now, so we all have some background information. So, any more comments, questions? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now we're gonna have to take the appointment of Emily Rose off the table. So I entertain a motion to take that off the table. Mr. Copine, Mr. Kitson seconds it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now it's off the table. I entertain a motion to approve the resolution appointment of Emily Rose to the Lee County Board of Health. Ms. Shippert makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion? Her bio's in our group. Any more discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go down to new business, the ARPA committee funding recommendations. I'm going to turn this over to Wendy.
Just a quick update for those of you who look puzzled on the agenda, there was another appointment that our super efficient secretary Becky put on twice on the agenda. So it's further down on the agenda. We'll deal with that a little bit further. So ARPA. So ARPA committee met obviously and made a recommendation on the small business program. If you'll recall, the small business program had a allocation of $500,000. The original program said that individuals or businesses could apply and they could receive up to $20,000 in benefit from that program. We ended up with 62 applications, of which staff sat down and reviewed those applications, and taking into account what we believed the intent of the ARPA committee and of the ARPA committee was when we put the program together, we made recommendations that of those 62, 3 of the requests we felt were better suited for the nonprofit community service organization category. So we pulled those out of the small business category and made a recommendation that they be funded out of the community service allocation. We had one business that had was, in our opinion, recommended to be removed because it was not the current owner was not the owner during the COVID shutdowns. We also had 8 other businesses that were removed from the list as part of our recommendation because they were not businesses that were required to close according to the governor's order. And while I think was acknowledged at the ARPA committee meeting, we know that all businesses suffered. Our focus for this was those businesses that were required to close under the governor's order, because we believe those to be deemed the most impacted. So we had 2 businesses that had already previously received some ARPA funds. As one example, the Dixon Theater. We had previously, this board granted $100,000 to the Dixon Theater. So we eliminated them from this list of small businesses because we felt like they had received that donation. So when all was said and done, we ended up with 49 eligible requests based on our recommendation, of which 1 we are recommending to request fund at $5,000, 1 to fund at $6,000. Those were because that's what they requested, by the way. And the remaining 47 requests, we recommended that we simply prorate the amount of money that we have to allocate. And that meant that the prorated businesses would receive $10,404 apiece. That recommendation was approved at the ARPA committee. The finance committee approved it. And subsequent to those meetings, we had communications from individuals that we recommended would be removed from the list that wished to appeal the decision of the ARPA committee and the finance committee. So in your packet, I hope you have a chance to review that. There are 2 letters in there. The appeal process was for them to submit in writing their appeal to you, the board. And I would suggest that you read through that and take that under consideration for your discussion and your overall vote. The only thing that I will say to you is that if you add or remove anybody from the list, then the proration of the $10,404 is going to need to be adjusted. So that proration was based on that recommendation from staff. So with that, I would entertain any questions or turn it back over to the chair.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. The organization that I felt was like really impacted by this. Obviously everyone was, but I guess being a young parent myself, like would be the organization that you alluded to that received the $5,000. I thought initially they had asked for 20 and then we said, we'll give you 10, but you got to go somewhere else. Now it's 5. I want to know what's going on there.
So to be clear, they got the initial 10.
Okay.
And what the ARPA committee asked them to do is come back and apply again under the small business for the 5. So that's why. So they've already gotten 10.
Okay. Sounds, I mean, not that everybody doesn't deserve it, but I guess being a parent, seeing like firsthand how these centers were impacted, you know, and this being a really important thing to young families in our community, you know, I just thought I wanted to understand what had happened.
Let's get a motion on the floor and then we'll have more discussion. Mr. Nicholson, do you want?
Use funds according to what
Okay, so we want to concentrate on cleaning up our motions, so when we go back, we read them. So I would say the motion would entertain a motion to approve the ARPA Small Business Program request prorated. Would that be the motion you'd like to make?
And might I add, Bob, I'm sorry, prorated, and as per staff, ARPA committee and finance committee recommendation. That'll really clean it up. How about that?
Sometimes when we're going back looking at our motions, I need to be more clear when I do it, or we all do, even in our other committees. So we're going to work on that in the next couple of months. So I have a first, do I have a second? Mr. Cobine seconds it. Now we're open for discussion. Mr. Sheeline.
So I just want some clarification, from the finance committee, because, might be wondering why there is a recommendation in regards to the appeals. So by the time we had not received the appeals and have them on the agenda for the finance committee. So they came, I think, the day of the meeting. At least two of them did, or something of that sort, Wendy. So that's why the finance committee does not have a recommendation in regards to the appeal. We can have a discussion about that. I have my own opinion, and I can share that later on. So I just want to make that clarification.
And that's accurate. We didn't receive the written appeals until after the finance committee had met, so.
So we don't have a appeal process. So would you recommend that goes back to ARPA, the committee, the appeals we have, or how would you want to address that?
My opinion on this, Mr. Chairman, is that the ARPA committee has made a recommendation. The finance committee considered the process and how that moved forward, and the committee made the recommendation to the board. I stand by that recommendation.
And that recommendation is to effectively deny the appeals.
It would be to not agree with the appeals and leave the proration as is.
Mr. Nicholson.
I agree. Exactly what he said. Denied it as we submitted it from the ARPA committee.
Or comments, questions? I think we need to do a roll call vote on this. Some of us need to abstain. Nancy, you want to do that?
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson. Palin. Sheeline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstead,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zeman,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Considine,
Yes.
Barster,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey,
Abstain.
Olson.
Abstain.
Yes. 0 no.
Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to go to 3, the small business award agreement. I'm going to ask Wendy to discuss this.
So with each of the programs that we've offered through ARPA, Sarah has created an award agreement. This was done also with the community service program that you offered. Similar to that, the small business, any small business that has been approved for funds under the small business program will receive this, and they will sign off on that and agree to the terms of the award agreement. And it's only upon them returning this application back to us will we actually issue the checks. We are poised to mail those immediately. And hopefully we can do a quick turnaround, getting those back and getting those checks out to those businesses. But all is going to rely on those business getting those applications back to us.
What's the process for them to bring that back? Who hands the check off to them, or we mail it to them, or how's that?
Yeah, once they'll turn the form back into us and to Sarah actually, and then Sarah will collect them and process them with Patty Rudolphi's help, and they will forward them on to the treasurer's office, and the treasurer's office will issue a check and mail it.
Preferred would be the email it to Sarah.
Either will work. I know that some of the agencies, it just seemed like it was easier to get them through snail mail. We were having some trouble with communicating via email. So either way works. Sarah has prepared envelopes so that all of the award agreements and the notice of the approval of the award will go into the mail in the next day or two. And by that, I mean snail mail, not email.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the ARPA Small Business Award Agreement. Do we have a motion? Ms. Shippert, Mr. Kitson seconds it. Now, any discussion about this? Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Let's wait, we better do a roll call vote. Some of us need to abstain on that too.
Copine,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Palin,
Yes.
Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Considine, Farster,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey,
Yes.
Kitson,
Yes.
Olson.
Abstain. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to 4 abandoned properties request for $100,000. This is $100,000 we're requesting out of the ARPA funds to tear down some abandoned properties in the county and get a process started. Mr. Nicholson and Mr. Copine have been working on. Let's get a motion on the floor and we'll discuss it. I would entertain a motion to approve the ARPA abandoned properties request from our for $100,000. Mr. Hudson makes a motion, Mr. Nicholson seconds it. Any discussion about this?
Bob, I'll just add that this did go through the ARPA committee and finance committee both and received recommendations from both those committees.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments, questions? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to number 5, the old courthouse HVAC system. It's funding from ARPA. So this is a cleanup. To make clear, it's a cleanup. We approved this months ago. Wendy probably knows when. Let's get a motion on the floor and we'll discuss it. I'd entertain a motion to approve the funding, the old courthouse HVAC project through the ARPA Capital Fund. So let's get a motion. Ms. Naylor and Mr. Palin seconds it. Now we have discussion. Wendy, you want to explain this, what we're doing here?
So yeah, Bob is correct. This was actually voted on and approved back in December. If you recall, back in December, we still did not have clarity on what the ARPA funds could be used for. It was on or about middle of January before we had the clarity. And a few months later, this board voted to approve $1.5 million of ARPA funding to be expended towards capital. But all of that happened after we had already approved this particular HVAC. By the way, the HVAC system is now complete. All we're trying to do here is clean up and make it clear that we are expending ARPA dollars on this. When the motion was made in December to approve the bid, there was not a funding source allocated to it because we weren't sure how we were going to fund it back then.
So any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Go to the Rebuild Illinois Grant, round 3. This is for lots. I'd entertain a motion to approve the Rebuild Illinois Grant, round 3 resolution, appendix D. Mr. Copine made a motion. Ms. Shippert seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to C, establishing county board terms following redistricting. I'm going to have Wendy explain this. I've read it about 10 times and I don't understand it. So I'm going to have Wendy take a stab at this.
So Bob admitted that to me earlier tonight. And I said, well, I've read it 10 times and I'm not sure I understand it. So the statute, as I explained earlier at one of the committees, there are numerous things you need to do following the census every 10 years. This is just another one of those steps. You took the board down from 24 to 20 members. And what this does is 2 things. It's going to, next month, the chairman will publicly draw lottery. And that lottery will determine of the 4 districts, for example, District 1, how many 2, 4, and 4-year terms will District 1 have versus how many 4, 4, and 2-year terms will District 1 have. So next month, it's all about determining the lottery for the districts. As board members, the newly elected board members in December will have a separate lottery. And based on what the district lottery said, board members will individually pull the terms, whether they be a 2-year, 4-year, and 4-year, or a 4, 4, and 2-year. So we're following the statutory requirement, Bob, based on that every 10-year census and the reduction of the board.
So to do it right, we've got to approve this resolution that's in your packet. So
And then the lottery will be held next month.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution establishing the county board terms following the redistricting. Mr. Kitson makes a motion, Mr. Naylor seconds it. Any discussion, comments? Everybody understand how we're going to do this? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We're going to go to the maintenance department step program concept approval. Once again, I'm going to ask Wendy to explain this. This has been in the works for months. We're going to hopefully tonight approve the concept, and then we'll take it from there. Go ahead, Wendy.
So as Bob said, this is something that's been in discussions for at least 6 months. Tom Wilson was, came to us initially with the idea, and we've kind of built it out from there through many, many conversations. So what you see before you is intended to be a step program for the maintenance department. So we've got some goals included in the packet. You'll see kind of the hierarchy of how we see this laying out. But our biggest goals here were to, as noted in the packet, hire and develop skilled maintenance. I don't know if all of you realize it, but when we hire somebody on the maintenance side of things right now, they come to work at the starting wage, which is the same starting wage as a typical clerical support staff. So up until we changed, had a $2 increase this year, they were coming in at like $12.31. So when you hire maintenance at $12.31, you get maintenance that doesn't really have a skill set. So we want to, first of all, establish that when we hire individuals, they have a skill set, but more importantly, even if they come on board without a skill set, they have an opportunity to learn a skill or skills as laid out in the proposal here, and be able to potentially advance by receiving step salary increases. So it's kind of a motivational tool for our employees. The long-term goal, of course, is to have in-house experienced staff that can deal with some of the things that right now we don't necessarily have. We also want to prepare for that. The term I use all the time is that hit by the bus scenario. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of cross-training going on. If the supervisor were to be hit by the bus, there's not somebody able to step in right now. So we want training to be able to have some succession planning, or even if it's just temporary hit by the bus, somebody's got to step in and run the department. As I said earlier, we want to motivate employees, and we want to hire and retain skilled employees. So any budgetary impact of this proposal is at the same time concurrently going to be moving through the Finance Committee. Right now, we're not expecting a huge budget increase. The primary key things we're looking for initially is $5,000 in training so that we can send individuals to training, whether it be HVAC or whatever the case may be. And there will be in the budget some additional salary in case an individual within the program actually achieves the next step up and is awarded that salary increase. So we've built in a couple of things. But most importantly, what I'd like to get across to you is that this is not a plan that we intend to implement overnight. This is a plan that's going to be implemented over time, as we've got several individuals that have been senior members right now of the maintenance staff that are looking at retirement. So we see these individuals retiring, and we need to plan ahead for what the maintenance department is going to look like going forward. What is it that we want them to do? Do we want them to be the janitorial staff, or do we want them to have a skill set and be able to, be true maintenance? So I know I've kind of gone on for a while there. You see in the program or in your onboard some of the parameters that we're looking to lay out. We do intend that if you adopt this concept tonight, and assuming that the Finance Committee approves the budgetary expenditures, that we will build out this program with more detailed job descriptions. Right now, you just see high-level concepts in there. So with that, Bob, I'll throw it out to anyone that may have any questions.
let's get a motion on the table first and we'll go from there. Mr. Nicholson, do you want to make a motion to approve the maintenance department step program concept?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Scroggs said, you want to second that? Okay, now we're up to discussion. Like Wendy said, this is not going to be, implemented overnight. It's going to go through budget. It's got to go through everything. We just want to prove the concept. So over the next year or two, it might take 2 years to get to where we want. We got the graph here and there's been a lot of work been done on this and we'll go from there. Any questions or comments? No comments, questions? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we go to appointments of Eva Pitzer, the appointment of Eva Pitzer as trustee to the Dixon Community Fire District. Do I have a motion for that?
I have some questions on this.
Sure.
No, is that we do a motion, then we do discussion?
Let's get a motion and a second on the table, then we'll,
So moved.
do I have a second? Mr. Book moves, Mr. Scrogstead seconds it. Mr. Book, any comments?
I just see the resolution come across our desk for the appointment of Eva Pitzer. And my concerns are that that department seems like they're short-staffed. They have trouble hiring people. I just wondered how I know we just usually just put in whoever someone suggests be on there, usually the head of the department. But I wondered if anyone in this room was familiar with the board or familiar with Eva, just in the same way that we looked at the appointments for the health department last month. Mr. Sheeline raised a complaint that a lot of times these boards are just appointed by the people that they're supposed to supervise. I'm wondering if that's the case here.
So excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is Wendy. I need to apologize. I am skimming down here right now and seeking, because there was a form completed for this one as well. It
It's
looks
in-
like we didn't get it attached. Do you see it?
Yeah, it's in the packet. I
Okay,
think.
all right. Thank heavens. I thought we lost it.
So they did do a form and it's in your packet. But this comes from the fire chief and I think it was explained to me that I think it's our board's job, the Lee County Board's job to seek these individuals out. I haven't read it
Have
myself.
we done that?
No.
I mean, sorry, just simple question. Like I said, Sheeline raised the question with health department board, and his main concern was that the person that is being supervised is the one appointing the people supervising them. And that was a conflict of interest. That's my concern here. And I wondered if we've done our due diligence on this.
I don't know if we have. I couldn't answer that. Probably not.
Bob,
I mean, and I would raise what does that look like? I'm not sure, but just I would echo Sheeline's concerns here.
Bob, this is Wendy. Would it be all right if I address that just with a little more information? So, Bob, I don't know that you're aware, but right after we created the form and sent the form out to the health department, shortly after that, we did get this request by resolution. I communicated with the fire chief and said, here's the process, and you do need to run this past your board. And he came back while I was not in the office, and he expressed concern that he is happy to do that in the future, but this individual this position has been vacant for some time, and he is asking for the board to go ahead and consider it now, but understanding that going forward, the trustees of that fire district, and will be asking this of all fire districts or other boards, will in fact, like you said, it won't be the fire chief, it'll be the fire district that is going to have that in their minutes. In this particular case, he asked for special dispensation, so you can take that under advisement and determine what route you want to take.
I think we're under time constraints here. I think they have a meeting next month and they're only down to 2 right now. And, so I wouldn't let that rush us. We'll do whatever we see fit, but I think we need to take all these appointments more seriously because we're out there making decisions for the community. Any more? Mr. Nicholson?
And we talked about the fact that we were going to request the resume if it impacted something that was directly funded by the Lee County Board or tax.
And we did, and he actually filled out the resume for this one, and I think it's up in your packet more. I don't find it here, but
Remember, this is the one that Becky put in twice. So if you go higher back up in your agenda, it is in there, and you'll note that This is a little bit more redesigned form because after we sent the initial one to the health department, I realized there really needs to be a spot on here for the fire district chief or whoever to fill us in on, exactly what's going on. And there's a note at the bottom that says, and you need to submit your minutes that this has been approved by your board. Again, the fire chief understood that. He was asking for special consideration this time around.
Mr. Book, do you want to revise your motion or do you want to?
I want to revise my motion. I mean, what's our time constraint here? Or what's just that they have a meeting, they won't be able to have a meeting?
That's my understanding.
Ms. Shepherd?
If we look at the form that they've completed, we're only appointing this person for a term of 4 months.
Oh, 10.
So if we delay it,
Yep.
what's the
Okay.
point?
Good point. I'm glad you've seen that. You're okay with that?
So what happens after 4 months? They get elected or what's the deal?
I think we appoint another one after
Okay,
that.
fair enough.
I think that term
I think this
expires.
person was just fulfilling the term of someone else, and that's why, so they'll probably be reappointed.
Any more questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I have no executive session. Approval of county office reports, quarterly treasury reports. There's no quarterly report, treasury report this month, but I'd entertain a motion to approve the county office reports. Mr. Kitson makes a motion. Mr. Forster seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So go down to approval of monthly revenue report, claims paid in vacation, and payroll paid. I'd entertain a motion to approve all the monthly revenue reports, the claims paid, the claims paid in vacation, claims, and payroll paid. Geez, got claims. Ms. Shepherd, Ms. Naylor seconds that. Any discussion? If none, this has to be done by roll call. Nancy?
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Palin,
Yes.
Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Zeman,
Yes.
Book,
Yes.
Considine, Farster,
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Sorry, that was a yes, right? Thank you. Humphrey,
Yes.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Go down to approval of board members mileage and per diem. I would entertain a motion to approve the board member mileage and per diems for the June's meetings. Mr. Kitson makes a motion. Mr. Williams seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Copine makes a motion. Mr. Kitson seconds it. All those in favor to adjourn the meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.